All right, so now we're at that point where you get to ask a question. Please, fire away.
Okay, it's really funny because I actually had a question in mind to start with, and then we spoke. My question didn't really change. It's more, you've already spoken a bit about it, but I want to know in the last, let's say the last year, so I give you a bit more than just whatever's going on now, just in the last year, what's the biggest lesson you learned about yourself?
What's the biggest lesson that I've learned about myself? I would say, and it does come with the challenge of social media, and you know, for everything in ourselves that is wonderful and talented and enlightened, there is a flip side, which is dark and mean and nasty. And I think the biggest learning for me was when I wrote a ridiculously long email called "There's a Dolphin in the Stone." And that particular email was me without filters, sharing what was happening in my country, how influenced and impacted I was by my president's speech saying absolutely bugger all for an hour, leaving people with more questions, more helpless. The anger that rose up around that, because I realized it really showed me how much I friggin' hate feeling helpless, and having to and kind of witnessing my process. But the thing is that, you know, you hear it all the time: be vulnerable, be authentic, be all of this. When in a workshop, it's very easy to do that because I can see you. So when I share something that's deeply vulnerable, I know. I know how far that's going to go. Whereas in this space of email and media, sharing that stuff feels different. And my learning has been that something I've said forever: I don't need you to like me. I don't need people to love me. I don't need you to even give me the time of day. I don't need that. But what I do have to do for my own authenticness and my own sanity is I still have to put it out there. And so sometimes that means, which is what I did 2 days ago, I had a lot going on in my head. And so I just got up in the morning and I said, hey, I'm going driving. I'm going to press record, and it means I'm going to drive and talk. I'm going around the coast. I'm looking at beauty, but I'm getting all the craziness out so that I can see what's lurking beneath. And the thing is that this is why the whole time in almost all the interviews it comes up, and I keep saying, I'm tired of people saying they're okay. Because if everyone's okay, then there is no problem. But your client comes and you go, so what are we working with? And they go, hey, well, Emilie, this is what I'm working with. But what we tend to do in these online spaces, everyone sits there and goes, I'm okay, and this is what I'm inspired by. This is what I'm grateful for. Here's my light. Oh, you know, I'm better off than others. And allow yourself to feel a bit shit, because then you can go there and you can do your work there, because the work doesn't happen in this wonderful, happy space. The work gets done in the really crappy places. And, you know, I often think, especially with these interviews, that sometimes people don't realize if you want to be the best, and I'm just picking a client. So I had a client, gold medalist swimmer, and when his agency wanted me to work with all of their athletes, they sent him because he was the one who was most physically aware, most aware out of all of their clients. And so they said, he's kind of unhackable. It was almost the starting point. Well, within 5 minutes, we were talking about how the fact that he walked into my room with a scarf over his head because if he gets recognized, the crowd comes in. The fact that he'd flown in today and managed to get from Cape Town airport to my room without too many people knowing was a big thing. And guess what? The very thing that every man thinks is the most amazing thing, the world, women love you, they'll do anything for you, was also his shutdown. And so here's this guy who can win a gold medal, but I could disrupt him within a second by us going there. And so if you don't understand your stories and somebody else does, you can get hacked. And if you get hacked, I have a message on one of my old phones from him after a world championship thing. And I'd warned him about something and he went, "No, I've got this." And I love it. Because we're not here to force people to do anything. I said, "I think this is a big deal." "No, it's not. It's not an issue." Well, one of the other athletes did something and disrupted the entire field. So the entire field, and in South Africa at that point, there were 6 swimmers who were world qualifying time. There were gold medalists. We had top swimmers. And the entire pool, except for the guy who chose not to swim, because he was the disruptor, the entire field swam 1 second off Olympic qualifying time. These were guys that were breaking world records. And so so I've got this message on my phone, "Doug, I suck. Yes, dude. And you were told. Because if you think swimming longer, harder, training more is what's going to be the difference between winning and losing, then you don't understand competition. Then you got your gold medal by luck. But it's the resilience is all of it. The resilience, we talk strength and power and flexibility, endurance, speed, balance, coordination, because it's a language that people understand. But that's just how we engage in the conversation. Once we start journeying, you start to realize how much more there is. If you have a concussion that keeps you locked in a dark room for 4 months, there ain't no performance in there. It's like there are many people who find themselves in those same situations that never leave that dark room because they find it so desperate. And it's these are the conversations that are important, because you lie there, you go, "This can't be it. There's nothing here worth living for." There are a whole lot of people sitting in the world right now in isolation who have lost. Why do I even need to take my next breath? And so it's unfortunate, but the suicide rates are going up and up. That's part of the. There was a particular week where the suicide rate deaths far out worldwide far outran the corona deaths. So it's,
the worst part is that we don't even acknowledge it and we don't talk about that.
Yeah,
we focus more on what we think we could prevent when really we could actually prevent the other one way better, but we just don't want to look at it.
Yeah, but and it's kind of, for me, that just brings such a sadness, because the thing I've always spoken about is, like, if you're already in prison and you do something really bad, they put you in solitary confinement. Why would they do that? Well, solitary confinement is designed to rob you of your humanity. It's because your connection to other people, even if you don't like them, just being around other people, it's part of your physiological need. And so when we put someone in solitary confinement, which is why, like, they slide your food in, someone doesn't walk in and hand it to you, because that's not solitary. It loses its impact. So how many people didn't realize that this lockdown has created that for them? They happen to live alone. They were absolutely fine with it before, but now they can't leave. And so that's that thing inside that goes on. And so it's tough. And it's like, I think that's the part that I feel. It's like, and what happens if we could just reach in and say, "Hey, have you tried this?" Because the irony about someone in solitary confinement is, I'd say, "Cool, I'm going to leave you there for 2 years. We're just going to teach you to activate." And you go, "Why the hell would you teach me to activate in solitary confinement?" Well, when you start pressing yourself, You start connecting in here, and oh, now you've got a connection. And I think when I was testing the 3,000 stories, the website, I wrote a story which was very important. It was when I put my first client program out, and a therapist had been working with this lady, pretty hectic story of trauma and rape and all of this stuff. And her feedback was, when she started doing the self-activations, she started reconnecting with herself and bringing back to life herself, not her therapist. Her therapist had created the space and opened the door. She'd walked through. And so it's just that connecting and going, hey, I'm here. I'm here. And, those are the sort of things which, if someone listening to this goes, hey, wow, I know how to reach a whole lot more people just to share that. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. We're not in this like, no, you can't. This is ours. No, there's a need. And, let's share. Let's bring an openness. And if someone says, no, I don't want that, you say, awesome.
Yeah. And I think what you said about allowing yourself to feel that negative emotion, to be able to get out of it, is so important. And I think to get to that point, you have to also be very connected to yourself. And by activating, then you get to that point much, much more easily. For example, this whole situation, everybody has their ups and downs. And recently, when they decided to do the second lockdown in the beginning of October, where they're basically telling you the people who were in your bubble cannot be in your bubble anymore, and you can't see your family, even if you've been seeing your family the whole time, that pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie, it really, really pissed me off and really hurt. And I couldn't understand why it was hurting so much until I decided to just take a nice deep breath and get connected with myself. And the first word that popped into my head was abandonment. So I'm gonna start crying. I'm gonna share because it's important, and it's important for others.
Sure.
My mother left when I was maybe 1.5. She left she left my father and my older sister, and she went to marry on another guy. And she was in and out of my life for about 20 years or so. I can't even remember, probably more. And it was never good. It was always, I was the parent, and I was never taken care of as a kid when she was around. I was taking care of her. So I dealt with a lot of abandonment issues in my life, and I thought I had dealt with all of it. She's not in my life anymore. I have a stepmom who's been basically my mother since at the age of 2. So, and she raised me into who I am, which I'm very thankful for. But I still had those abandonment issues my entire life, and I really was sure I dealt with it until the second lockdown. Because once I realized why I was so mad, I realized the first word that came was abandonment. And I was like, okay, but why? And I was like, oh, well, I feel like my sister's abandoning me. I feel like my friends are abandoning me. They're not seeing my children grow up. They're not, like, I'm pregnant.
And you kind of, and you start going through a story.
Yeah.
But actually,
it took a minute. After I realized the word abandonment, it took me a minute to get out of it. I was like, oh, I feel like this. And I feel like the government is making everybody abandon me. That's the feeling I'm getting, but it's not accurate. The people are not abandoning me. It's the rules are in that are there.
The things that have happened have made you feel like this. So if you can't name it, if you can't, then you can't feel it. So it continues to shift around and shift your behavior, and we duck and dive and weave, but we keep feeling it.
Yeah. And within a minute of acknowledging that, it was gone, and I was okay, and I was not mad, and it was a huge shift, but I had to allow myself to feel it and to understand it and to be connected to it, to then be able to let it go. And I see that a lot with a lot of my patients now. It's that almost everybody's in a zero, everybody's overwhelmed. But I'm at a state in my life that I'm so connected with myself. And I'm now connected with everybody else so much that I'll be working on somebody, I'm going to be touching something, and automatically I'm like, all right. And I say it, I'm like, I don't know, but I feel sadness. And all of a sudden they'll just start crying, or I'll be like, I feel lack of self-worth, and that emotion just lets go out of them. It's like I'm connected to their emotion to allow them to acknowledge it, because most of the time we just don't want to. And
so almost like back into our start conversation, is that what you're doing for your clients is you're acting as a reference point. And so when someone's a zero, they have no reference point. Everything is overwhelming. So what happens is, and unfortunately, this is happening too. And a lot of people are putting on all of their protective gear and going and treating clients, but being overwhelmed in that situation too. So now you've got a zero being taken care of by a zero. And my answer is good luck with that. That's why we have to take care of ourselves first. If you're a reference point, you don't even have to be a perfect friggin' reference point. You just have to be a little bit better than where they're at. So you get to go, hey, wow, man, this is where it looks like you are. And they go, hey, wow, man, there's a lighthouse. You're the lighthouse. Woo, I know where I am. I'm not going to crash into the rocks. It's like we need that, because people in overwhelm, they've lost their reference point. They've lost any kind of like place where they can feel connected or grounded, and the, you know, the challenge is the information that's bombarding us is just getting louder and louder and more noisy, and it's hell, it's like the honeybees are getting angry. And right at the beginning of the year, I posted something because we new house and there were hives next door, and you knew there was this constant zzz, and I became afraid to go in my garden. Why? Because I'm allergic to bees, and I got stung on my face by 2. Then I went to go pick up my lawnmower 3 hours later, and a whole lot attacked me. I had to jump in the pool and pull them out my hair, and they were angry. But it kind of feels, actually, I'm just realizing it kind of feels like that. So like this place that was this garden we'd worked so friggin' hard to get you, and suddenly for about 5 days until the hives were moved, probably even longer, I'd kind of go out the door and I would feel the fear and anxiety rising up. So it's hard to appreciate something that you've created that's beautiful. Oh, wow, look at the sunset, when there's this background brrr noise that's scary. It's not that different to what's going on in the world. There's so much friggin' noise that you can focus on what inspires you, and you can focus on what you're grateful for, and you can, but there's so much noise. And so the thing is, how do we find the stillness? How do we drop there? And sometimes that is just someone standing next to us, maybe sticking a thumb into us going, hey, there you are. You know, and isn't it interesting how so many of those people have these huge emotions that come out? You know, last week, which actually it goes out today, I think, I interviewed Grant, who's in Scotland, and I joked because he said these big, mean, huge Scottish guys coming in, and they need to talk, they need to let go. He's going, it's kind of crazy. You know, there's, you know, what we call here snot en trane, which is snot and tears, and he's like, it's crazy. Yeah, but this is what people are carrying. You know, you've set up your world, and you have all these things that you've created. This, that's your certainty. And now suddenly all of it's being taken away because of a plan to overcome something. And if you completely agree with what your government in whatever country you're in, if you completely agree, it's still going to be hard. But if you don't agree, if you have doubt, then it brings up even more things. So it brings up our abandonment. Oh, but I've worked on that. You know, how many times I've worked on clients and we're hitting a point and suddenly stuff comes, they go, oh my God, I remember this. And then they go, no, that can't be. I spent 3 years with a psychologist. They said I dealt with it. I'm like, dude, it's in your body. If it's in your body, it's still there. It's just hiding away for now. And the thing is that these situations just add pressure, and stuff that's been percolating under the surface does come up. And so it's the, how do we help people let some of that move? You know, as I said, my recommendation for starters is get in your car, and if you're not allowed to get in your car, lock yourself in a cupboard. I don't know, pretend you're Harry Potter or something, but put your earphones in and record yourself. Talk to yourself until you have nothing left, because you might actually find out at the end what you're actually thinking, because all the noise is gone. You know, I had one particular session which was quite enlightening. 6.5 hours of driving, 6.5 hours of speaking. I had a lot to get out of my head. But it was amazing, the cathartic feeling of almost going, oh, that's what it's about. Oh, okay, got it. And so there are many ways to do that. But if we can't like step back inside ourselves and take a bit of ownership of what we're feeling, even what our body's doing, and what I always say is your body doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't always have to be 100%. Like my body is my greatest big alarm. It's like when I've got something that I need to do that I'm probably fearful of doing or don't really want to do, but it's a big stretch. My body, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have this weird shit going down. And it took me a while to realize that it was such good timing. Why? I must sort it out. That's a higher priority. So suddenly I shift my focus onto what's going on in my body. And 2 days later, I've completely forgotten what I was going to be doing 2 days ago. So my body's hijacked. And it's like now, and it's up there. You know, I write these things just to remind myself, hey, when I have an insight, this is always changing. By the way, there's a whole wall of words here. Doug's craziness written out. So what's that? 3 meters by about 6 meters of craziness. Because I know that I've got to take what's in here and let it out. And some of that letting it out is so that other people can hear it. But most of the time, it's so that I may know. So the lesson is everything that's inside, it's part of you. Let it out, have a look at it. And if you like it, hold on to it. And if you don't like it, let it go.
Yeah. Like Shrek says, better out than in.
Better out than in. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Look, it's I think the thing is that all of these situations create pressure, and pressure, you either get crushed, you spend your time fighting, or you understand it, and all of them have different responses in our system. And when you understand it, when the pressure can no longer be the thing that controls you, well, then you're back in power. Then you're back in your life and your world. And that's really what we're saying. When we can bring ourselves back into a self-awareness, then you get to choose. If everything is about the outside layer, the zone threes, the ATOFs, well, then they choose. They tell you. So then don't complain. Phew. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This was fun.